Patriots postgame. We were trying to wait till all the 4:00 games got done, but we don't want to wait too long because we're going to smack into the 8:30 start. So we're going to do a quick postgame show here. Mike Kadlick, John Zannis, Alex Barth is going to jump in just a little bit, recapping the Patriots 17-14 Week 2 win over the Steelers. This is a tough one to break down and too deeply. It's kind of an ugly win, one the Patriots absolutely had to have, but definitely like some stuff inching forward, on
Sure.
offense a little bit. We know Pittsburgh's offensively challenged as well. Things I liked seeing a clock-killing drive at the end of the game with the Patriots just able to run the ball. So that's good vindication for the offensive line. That's definitely playing better. It being such a huge concern, it's not as big a concern.
Oh, yeah.
Just 2 weeks into the season, I think that's a huge positive. I think
Mac wasn't sacked. He wasn't sacked.
So the protection and the ability to kind of salt it away by running the ball, I think it was 9 consecutive times over 6 minutes down there. That's all good stuff. Mac still looks a little shaky. He's throwing off his back foot too much. He definitely missed some reads and missed some throws today. So not the best version of himself, but again, you're still trying to figure things out. So we'll kind of slice it up. What do we think, mattered most about today's win? But just your initial impressions, Mike, on this one. And again, obviously, if not for a big special teams gaff, you also don't know how that's going to go as well. Another fumble in this game. My goodness. Jesus. Arizona's going to run it back for a touchdown.
For the win, overtime, right?
For the win in overtime.
Crazy. Josh McDaniels completely poops down his leg.
There's about a 1% chance that the person who picked off the pass got rid of it before he crossed the goal line. I want to see the replay on that, but we'll see.
Well, keep us updated, John. So yeah, as far as the Patriots go, I mean, look, a win's a win, right? I mean, how can you try and pick apart a win too much? I think, yeah, they were sort of handed 7 points on the Gunnar Olszewski muff punt, but a great play by Brendan Schooler, who kind of came in undrafted free agent and has kind of made a name for himself as a special teamer. He was a gunner on the play, and he didn't get blocked up at all. So he was right in Gunner's face and grabbed the ball when he could. The Patriots capitalized on it. So that's kind of the brand of football that they've played for 20 years now, is capitalizing on other people's mistakes, and they did it today. So I mean, again, kudos to them. I think it was all around. They played great defense. They played okay on offense, enough to win against the Steelers. But, already looking forward to next week against the Ravens. They're going to have to build a lot off what they did today to kind of get another win.
A lot. And so we're going to spend some time as a wild week, particularly in the AFC East, both with what Miami was able to do and then what the Jets were able to do also. Really, really crazy stuff.
Yeah. We need to apologize to some Miami, if there's any Miami listeners here, because we dumped on Tua last week and he kind of put it in our face today, going for 450 and 6 touchdowns.
He sucked.
He threw 6 touchdowns. I can't complain about 6 touchdowns. I mean, granted, it's Tyreek and it's Jalen Waddle going.
I can't complain about it because I've got Waddle in 3 out of 4 leagues.
Yeah, right.
So I've got no problem with that. But yes, I understand. That was an interesting one. The Jets coming back the way they did, that was also crazy. So things are pretty tight in the AFC East. But again, you're taking those baby steps. This was you play the schedule in front of you and you have games that are considered winnable. This was a winnable game and borderline must-win game. So it's going to be hard to get too upset about the quality of it. That being said, our friend and colleague Greg Bedard, who earlier in this week he did an appearance on NBC Sports Boston, and his takeaway was that this game could set back offensive football 20 years. And after the first half of play, it looked like he was kind of close. To that. It really was gross in a lot of ways. But kudos, the Patriots, 2 things that I liked. They let Mac cook, so to speak, right? They put him back there. They let him kind of see the field a little bit. He was in shotgun. He was trying to sling it around. He threw some contested balls. He's not at all. He threw some really bad ones. The interception to Parker. Yeah. I don't know how you don't see Minka there.
No.
Fitzpatrick.
And just a bad throw, a bad read and a bad throw.
Yeah.
Continue. Sorry.
Yeah. No. They were looking in the field to see whether the thing I said, whether he tossed it.
Yeah.
It's a touchdown. He tossed it right at the one.
That's crazy.
Really close. Really close.
I thought we were going to get that on the Agholor touchdown today. He kind of looked like he dumped it a little early too when he scored, but they didn't even touch it. But.
So let's start with that play. So the first real big play of that game is that Agholor play.
Sure.
So this is what it's come down to with the Patriots. You're watching the entire game, and it's so easy. It's not, it's just like their offense is death by 1,000 paper cuts, right?
Mm-hmm.
Without big dynamic, big play guys, without Mac having that big arm to be able to thread it into tight windows or really press coverage downfield, you've got to play a lot of those crossers and the underneath and the dink and dunk stuff and work on your running game and get these long 12, 14, 15 play drives, presumably to be able to get down the field, which is what the Patriots always used to try to get other teams to do, which is I dare you to be good for 12, 14, 15 plays. And because it's hard to do that. It's we don't want to give up chunk yards. Patriots conversely just can't really do that. So that first big play, what you need is sometimes playmakers, right? Playmakers to do something. And Agholor did something that we really haven't seen a Patriots receiver do. And really what Devontae Parker was brought in to do. And Parker, I want to see the snap counts, was totally marginalized in this game.
Yeah, and he's playing a lot of snaps for them.
Yeah, and so Agholor,
Go ahead.
So Agholor was out there, and he goes up and he does that thing, and he pulls it out from behind, and he makes that contested play. Huge game. Agholor, I mean, you're dying, right? And we're going to get into the trio of Jonnu, Parker, and Henry, who combined for as many catches and yards as you and I did today, Mike, a little bit later. But we'll start with we'll start with Agholor. You're dying for any of those guys, any of those acquisitions to flash in any way and to do something. And Agholor's supposed to be a downfield guy, and they just haven't been able to use him. And that was huge today. He had an all-around really solid game for them. We know Myers is like the safety blanket sort of guy, and I think that's actually part of the problem with New England is this over-reliance on a guy who really can't be a playmaker for you. He's not a yak guy. He's not a deep threat guy. And seeing Agholor do what he did today, that I thought was obviously a huge, like a big sign.
Especially too, like as far as the receiver room as a whole goes. I mean, we saw the saga that was the Kendrick Bourne stuff over the last 2 weeks, and then today, prior to the game, Mike Giardi from NFL Network reported that Myers essentially told him that he questions what the game plan here is sometimes from the offense, and so it started to look, like these receivers are like, okay, what the heck's going on here? But as you mentioned, the acquisitions from last year, Agholor and Bourne, Agholor, Bourne, and the tight ends, right? We finally got what we needed to see out of Nelson Agholor, who is a big money guy here, right? He had 6 catches for 110 and a touchdown. I saw Alex, who's going to join us shortly, tweeted earlier that he's the first Patriots receiver since Demir Byrd to have over 100 and a touchdown.
Yeah.
So again, we saw the big play stuff. We saw the playmaking stuff from him too. Like you said, he mossed the guy for a touchdown, which is something I feel like I've mentioned it 3 or 4 times on whether it's Patriots postgame or Patriots beat the end to the Buffalo playoff game where Agholor failed to go up and grab it, and someone else came in and intercepted it. But he's finally, him and Mac kind of look like they have something going here early in the season, which is, I mean, it's good to see.
But they needed that. Everybody needed that. You needed that Agholor catch and that play so badly, and it was the offense is starved for something, play, something to happen. So that was huge because up until
going back
it was just Jacoby underneath, and that was it,
right?
And nothing else going. And then some production from the running backs, but that was it, man.
And like I said, it's good. A win's a win, right? They got the win. But if you take away the Agholor play and then you take away the muff punt, that's 14 points right there that they don't have. That's them right back to 3 points in the game. So
right. So that's the thing is you're not getting enough sustained drives. You're not doing as much as you would like. But again, that was great. We'll bring in Alex Barth, who's wearing a Raiders hat, I think.
No,
I'm just kidding.
Boston. Boston.
So what we're talking about, Alex, just to catch you up here, main takeaway, still a bit of a slog on offense, but 2 things we liked a lot: improved play from the offensive line and the desperate need for a big play, which they finally got in the form of Nelson Agholor. I feel like that was like the play we've been waiting for since the preseason began, to see something like that and have a playmaker just go up and make an individual play down the field. I really felt like that. I mean, that turned the check mark into a positive on the offensive side of things almost single-handedly after what was really a slog to start.
Want to make sure I got my right mic on here. I sound okay?
Yeah, you sound terrific.
Alex,
Yep,
you
okay,
sound phenomenal.
Thank you.
As Barthy as ever, yeah.
Yeah, totally.
I would say that especially what you said at the end, waiting for a playmaker to go up and make a play. I thought it would be Devontae Parker, but
Didn't
it was
we all
nice.
for the last 2 weeks?
It was nice to see a receiver go up and compete for a 50-50 ball. Devontae Parker kind of wasn't lying when he told us it was 80-20. The way it's kind of looked. Look, Max should not have thrown the ball he threw the pick on, but for the second week in a row, Devontae Parker ran right through it. He's
just floating. He's just running away. He's not coming back. Yeah.
He's trying to let the ball come to him instead of going for the ball.
Yeah.
Didn't come back to even try to make the tackle. But yeah, I think and I wrote about this on 98.5thesportshub.com. Just to get the monkey off the back, right? With that big play. Maybe it's not exactly how you drew it up. I called it a good, not great throw for Mac Jones.
Yeah.
There's certainly the opportunity. If Agholor doesn't make that play, I still think you probably get a PI call coming back to the football, but didn't lead him. But no, I think that felt really good to get that moving forward, that momentum. Like you said, the offensive line was better. There's still some issues. Isaiah Wynn did not have a good day today. He had a crucial false start. I also think people were blaming Mac Jones on that when they tried to run that screen pass to Jonnu Smith, right? And DeMarvin Leal stepped in front of it and almost picked it off. That to me is on Wynn. If the play's to that side, you can't, step back in pass protection there. You got to come forward. You got to push him off that spot, give Jonnu Smith a clear starting point. And I don't know if Wynn had the wrong call or just got, beat off it. I'd have to go back and watch it. But the offensive line, yes, was better, though. I think that's important.
That last drive at the end of the game is one of the things we talked about, is being able to kind of salt it away with a 6-minute drive and not give that ball back and just run the ball.
That was very impressive, yeah.
That's
a
win.
Good defensive front. Even without TJ Watt, you look at the guys they have in the middle. Obviously, Hayward, who was talked about a ton this week down in Foxborough. They were very complimentary of him. This morning, Bill Belichick called him one of the best players they'll face. And then Tyson Alualu, who's no slouch either, especially as a run defender. So for them to kind of pound the ball up the field 6.5 minutes, I believe they only threw it twice on that drive.
9 runs, I think.
Very impressive.
Yeah.
And that also shows why it's important for them. Again, they had one of these drives where they had a great drive to start the game, right? And they didn't quite capitalize on it, but it shows even more why they have to finish those drives, how different they look when they play from ahead, when they can kind of just punch the other team in the throat play after play after play. But you can only do that if you afford yourselves the opportunity to do it. If you're down 14-3, 17-3, that's not going to happen. And they talked about that last week after the game. So to have that opportunity and really show what they can do when they get ahead, I think it creates even more urgency for, hey, they got to start these games strong. They got to finish these early drives that they're moving the ball on.
Yeah. No doubt. And it makes, you can obviously be a little bit more balanced when you're not chasing. It's not a team that's meant or built to play from behind. We know that.
Right.
Again, they're not moving mountains here. It's a 4 yard per carry, running game here, 124 total on the ground, but Max stayed clean. Again, given how bad it had been, this relative to expectations is a solid, high flying marks for the offensive line with still plenty of room for improvement. Just on assessing Max Day individually in a vacuum, yes, there's some issues where it could have been receiver Parker coming back to the ball, even though that throw probably you can't really make that.
That was a tough throw
with the safety lingering that close by. And you mentioned Isaiah Wynn. He still looks like he's seeing ghosts a little bit, and I get that from how shaky things were with the offensive line through the preseason, through those games. Too many back foot throws, definitely some misfires, throwing high, throwing off target. And again, we talk about having to play perfect, where the offense, without a big dynamic, big play guy down the field or Mac really able to stretch the defense, they really have to play nearly perfect. Mac's one of those guys. He's like a pitcher with an 87-mile-an-hour fastball. He's got to hit all of his spots. He really can't be misfiring on some throws that he should be making, and he definitely missed a few today.
Well, I was just going to say, in a year ago, right, the thing that made Mac so good and what allowed this team to get to the playoffs was the fact that he was so consistent and he made the right reads, though he didn't have the big play ability, if you will, that I guess we haven't seen yet this year, but he didn't do it last year either. But his thing was his consistency. This year, it's a lot more inconsistent. I mean, luckily they played better football around him today. But like you said, the throw to Parker down the middle was a bad throw and a bad read all mixed together. Something we didn't see much last year. And then there was that third down where he tried to, I think it was Jonnu Smith that he threw the ball to, and he had Myers Bear in the left flat for a first down. So things like that you just want to kind of see him improve on as they go forward. The play calling itself on top of that actually boded pretty well for him, as much as we've all kind of questioned it especially in last week. They called a pretty solid game from an offense, especially on that last final drive. So
yeah,
I think Mac just needs to clean up some of his.
But is he seeing the field well right now, Alex, do you think?
No, and I don't think it's like a read issue, a football IQ issue. I think he's just rushing through his reads because, again, I still think he's sped up from the preseason. John, you mentioned throwing off the back foot. That's usually a symptom of a guy feels like he doesn't have time to set his feet, plant, and throw, right? So I think he still feels rushed. Even, he said after the game today, the offensive line played great. He didn't really get hit, although he did take one big shot. I think it was on the interception, actually. That was kind of similar to the one last week against Miami, but he still just seems sped up to me. I don't think like he doesn't know what he's looking at. I think he's just rushing. The Jonnu Smith thing to me.
He's rushing. It's whether he's seeing ghosts, you think the pressure's coming, or he's worried that it might come. He is sped up a little bit too much. Stuff we saw a little bit in the second half, in the last third of last season, is kind of still rearing its head a little bit here.
Yeah, the people who compare him to like Trubisky, right? Because they played today. Look at the pick Trubisky threw. Trubisky just didn't know what he was looking at. Right. And Mac Wilson's right there. I think with Mac Jones, like you used that Jonnu one as an example, I'm guessing he saw something based on what he saw on tape, or maybe it even came from the coaches that was, hey, this call, based on what we know the Steelers like to do, Jonnu's going to be open here. Like, that's your guy. And so he didn't bother to check. He just went with his pre-snap read and rolled it, right? Whereas, last year, because this was my thought in the moment, last year, Mac Jones stops, sets, sees he doesn't have Jonnu open, goes to that second progression, hits Jacoby Myers in the flat. That, to me, is just he's sped up. He's not going through his reads correctly. It's fixable, but really the only way they're going to fix it is if he's getting constant protection here moving forward and he can get back into that rhythm he was in last year.
Yeah, and it wasn't just that. He had that gut shot interception they almost turned it over late, threw it into the belly of, I forget who that was, for Pittsburgh, and a couple just high throws to open receivers. So it's just a little off target all game, and I think sped up is the right way. I thought I saw a next gen stat minus 0.5%. Completion percentage above expectation, one of the worst, of the early window, at least when that stat was pulled. So he, wasn't, he had a subpar overall game, that was really saved, I think, a lot by that Agholor reception there. I think we're talking about things a little bit differently. So you want to see a little bit more from Mac, not to turn it on to fully the negative, but it's hard not to notice what's not happening. And when you have Devontae Parker, Jonnu Smith, and Hunter Henry have 0 receiving yards, 0 receptions on 7 targets total, sure, sometimes there's game plan specific stuff, but I mean, you're talking about they're running a ton of 2 tight end sets, Alex, and the idea is that they want to run some of this offense through these guys, and there's just nothing going there, and I'm not really sure how much is design, how much is just simply there's just nothing there. And, Parker, we've already talked about his issues. You've got 2 interceptions and 1 completion through 2 games going his way. That stuff's not working right now.
Yeah, so I think it comes down to Mac kind of has his guys. Do you have I don't have it right in front of me. Threw the ball, 35 times, right, in this game?
Yep.
So Mac
was 21 of 35 for 252.
Okay, so 35 times, 19 of those 35 targets were to Jacoby Myers or Nelson Agholor. Myers was targeted 13 times. Agholor 6. Nobody else more than 3.
Yeah.
So
no, he's got his binky. It's obviously Jacoby Myers.
It is, but
number 1. That's his safety valve, and then he looked for Agholor. And again, we're happy that happened because the Agholor had been one of the worst connections he's had. They could not get on the same page. Seeing them get on the same page at all is great. So you're right, but what's going on with the other guys?
Yeah, so I think some of it is Max. He's looking to Myers and Agholor first. I think with Jonnu Smith, he didn't get as open as he did last week. I thought he looked good last week. The one I will say, Mac threw him, I don't know if it was a wheel route or just a slot fade late in the first half that he put like just Jonnu maybe could have made a play on it. It was maybe a little overthrown. It fell incomplete. That's the kind of throw I'd like to see Mac test more. I thought there was like, it was never going to be picked off or anything. It was either Jonnu's going to catch or it's going to be incomplete. So that throw more with Henry. It doesn't seem like he's running the seam as much as he did last year. It seems like they're lining him up more to the outside or they're running him underneath. That's a little concerning to me. I'd like to see him run the seam more. I think that's where most of his production came. And maybe there's something about him running routes in other places or Mac where he doesn't want to throw him the ball in those other spots. And as for Devontae Parker, he hasn't given Mac a ton of reason to throw him the ball. I think Mac's targeted him, 3 times this year, right? And
I think 4, but yeah.
Okay, well,
maybe,
he targeted
maybe
him
3 or 4.
today.
Yeah. Okay.
2 of them have been picks, and one of them certainly, I know it was a missed call last week, but Parker still could have done more to fight for that ball. This week, again, it wasn't a great throw, but as a quarterback, you remember that where, all right, I'm throwing to this guy, and the ball keeps getting picked off, and he's supposed to be the 50-50 guy. He came out in camp, he said 80-20, and he just, he hasn't really given Mac a reason to throw to him, and especially with young quarterbacks, you got to give him a reason to throw to you. So that to me is the deal with Parker. I think Jonnu Smith, some of it is circumstantial. I liked what I saw from him last week. I'm not super worried about him. I think just today, Steelers have a lot of fast linebackers. It wasn't a Jonnu Smith game. I didn't think it was going to be a Jonnu Smith game coming in. Hunter Henry, it looks like his route tree has changed. That's interesting. That's something to monitor. Parker's the only one where I'm really worried about the connection.
So again, the fact that there is such a thing as a Jonnu Smith game or a Hunter Henry game speaks largely to the problem of like that you didn't bring them in here to work in certain situations and certain circumstances. You brought them in here to be dynamic, middle of the field threats, Jonnu being able to do stuff after the catch and Hunter Henry just being a first down machine who were just going to be difficult people to defend at all times, not under certain circumstances. So I don't want to excuse it entirely and just be like, this wasn't the ideal matchup. Yeah, sure. Every once in a while you have the fast linebackers. They're going to do a better job against tight ends, or you're going to have a really big cover corner who's going to erase a receiver, X, Y, and Z. But there's just too many games where there are zeros.
Yeah,
I know we've only played 2 this year, but I mean, you're just not getting enough here, and after 2 games, you can't be getting this little.
They've always been a bit of a game plan offense, though, right? And I know, like you said, you pay those guys to do big things. It's concerning when neither of them have a big game. I think what's attractive is they're very different players. So, in theory, one of them should always be in play in any game, right? It's when they both don't do much that's concerning. I'll tell you this. Look, the Ravens are the Ravens. They are what they are. Mike Gesicki had a big game for the Dolphins today against the Ravens, who the Patriots play next week. They, at the very least, I think if Hunter Henry's not more involved next week, I'll be a little worried.
Okay, but is it really that concerning if we don't get a huge tight end game from a day like today? Because realistically, if you look at a guy like Hunter Henry, who seemed like instead of a third down back being a security blanket last year, though, when you have today a guy like Jacoby Myers step right into the role, completely unbothered by it, like the offense still moved. It's not like they were missing the target share from the tight end, but they weren't missing. Like,
that's not my issue.
So here's the problem.
My issue is this. I'll let you get. Like, I just want to put. When I say it's an issue, it's the idea behind. There's not one star, but there's a lot of different options on the offense. Only works if all of them are actually options. Not if there's, and that's the issue. Is you should be able to find mismatches different places because you have so many different versatile type of weapons out there, and they're not doing that. They're really sticking to 1 and 2 guys as go-tos consistently, or at least Mac is.
And just what I would add to that too. In this game, yes, it's not a concern. And look, if this is a one-off, if this is the worst game for the tight ends this year, fine, so be it. Like, that might happen. The concerning thing is again, when you have 2 guys getting such an incredible volume of the target share in Myers and Agholor, eventually a defense is going to say, we're going to double Jacoby Myers. We're going to double him on every play. We're going to double him on third down. We're going to sit underneath him on third down. If that opens up, Kendrick Bourne down the field, if that opens up Hunter Henry down the field, if that opens up Jonnu Smith in the flat to pick up yak plays, so be it.
Yeah, but that's fine.
Okay, but here's the thing. They need to be able to take advantage of that. Mac needs to be able to take advantage of that. You're the one who brought up the third down where he forced it to Jonnu Smith, right? It's the same thing. Eventually, And this is why I'm saying it's not necessarily a problem. It's just something to watch. Eventually, a team is going to say to Mac, we're taking away Jacoby Myers. We don't care what else you do. You're not going to throw the ball to Jacoby Myers today. Right. Mac's got to be able to respond to that. And the guys he's going to go to respond to that, you would think, are mainly the tight ends. So they just, again, again, it's 2 games in, right? But it's the question is when that happens, how will they handle it? I don't think it's next week against Baltimore. Green Bay could certainly play that way. They could throw Jair Alexander on Jacoby Myers. And look, I think Jacoby's a good player. Jair Alexander might be top 5 corner in the league. Right. If they want to take away Jacoby Myers, they can take away Jacoby Myers. What are you going to do if you're Mac Jones, if you're the Patriots offense in that situation? Especially, Green Bay, you're probably not going to be able to run the ball 30, 35 times like you did today. They're going to need an answer. And I think that's what me and John are talking about. It's not a concern, but this is kind of the next step, the next evolution in this offense.
Cool. Show us something.
Right. Yeah. They can win when Jacoby Myers catches 9 passes. That's great. If they couldn't, then I'd be really alarmed. I'm glad they can do that. I'm glad we saw that. What happens when he can't? That's what the next step is.
Yep. It's almost like it's going to be, like you said, it's going to have to be a tight end game where Hunter Henry goes into the week knowing that he's going to need to show up here. Because I was looking on Twitter earlier, and Taylor Kyles, our film guy here at CLNS, was looking at some stuff from week 1, and Henry looked like he was like essentially checked out of the game. He was making, every time he was in for a block, he kind of just was putzing around and not doing anything, where Jonnu Smith was a guy who was actually kind of making a little bit of effort. So it almost could be a thing where, okay, Hunter Henry, we're going to need you this week. You need to show out. And I have the confidence in him to do that because I think we saw what him and Mac had last year. This year, if they have to kind of go to it, we'll have to see, but it doesn't necessarily, that whole dynamic of having them take away that guy and then having to fill it in with Kendrick Bourne and Hunter Henry, who he showed he has a connection with even last year and at some points this year. It doesn't worry me as much, I think, as you guys.
Sure. Alex, were you listening to the Bill Belichick press conference?
Yeah.
Did he mention Yates at all?
I can pull up the transcript real quick. I don't believe he did.
Okay, I didn't know if he was asked about
Monday morning question.
I'm gonna mention it because we talked about the offensive line play. There was a bit of something that I thought was interesting that happened today that hadn't happened prior. But first, we want to tell you about our sponsor, Athletic Greens. If you want to check it out, you should check it out. We all use it. All of us over at the Garden Report. I don't know if you guys are hooked on it yet, Alex.
Not yet.
Yes?
Not yet. Send it to me. I'll go for it.
I'm a greens guy.
Alex, I'll send it to you. I will send
it my way.
Athletic Greens. Why do we like it? Because it's freaking awesome. It's 75 vitamins and minerals all in one spot. That helps you with your digestion, energy, immune system, nervous system, all of those things. Whole food sourced ingredients, probiotics, and it's just there. It's a little scoop. You put it in water, bang, $3 a day. It's terrific, lifestyle friendly, less than 1 gram of sugar, any diet friendly, keto, paleo, vegan, dairy, whatever you're on, gluten free. This fits within that. It's just a really small price to pay for improved health, which is something that we all strive for. We've all been taking it over on the Garden Report, so I'll let you know if you do want to get it going. Check out that URL there on the screen, athleticgreens.com/garden. Go there. You'll get a 1-year supply of immune supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. And Alex, you should know by now about our incentive program within the company. You can have Athletic Greens at a very reasonable price to you, my friend. So I would look into it for sure.
All right.
Okay, check it out. So 17-14, Patriots beat the Steelers. And one thing that happened this week, which was different than before, was Billy Yates, who for some reason the issue with the Patriots, and I don't know whether this is a thing or not a thing, but is Matt Patricia is supposed to be the offensive line coach, but it's really Billy Yates is a de facto line coach because Matt Patricia is a de facto offensive coordinator. And with the offensive line not playing well, who's out there telling them what to do? Well, Billy Yates spent the preseason in the first game up in the sideline for the first half of the game, and then he'd come down to the sidelines in the second half. Bill Belichick was asked about it during this week. He's like, because we think it's the best thing to do. And then he changed it this week. I don't know if that's a mea culpa okay, yeah, we tried it. It didn't work. He didn't admit to it in the media, but it seems like some sort of admission that it happened during the game. And what do you know? The offensive line played a little bit better. We're not going to say it's a cause and effect sort of thing. It was a small little interesting nugget that I thought was worth mentioning, at least today, that was a little bit of a change. Then you've got somebody in their ear all game long, and Patricia can focus a little bit more on the offense. It seems to make perfect sense. So I, again, don't know how much it contributed, but it was something that I noticed today.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. I think it's an important point. I don't think it's entirely a coincidence. I don't think it's entirely the reason the offensive line played
Of course
better,
not.
but,
of course not.
if you want to say it contributed to it, I wouldn't push back on that. I think that would be a fair assumption.
Yeah. So something worth pointing out. Overall, what are your thoughts of the defensive play, guys, today?
So I thought that I kind of feel about the defense this week like I did about the offense last week. I thought the players played well when they were put in the situations to play well. Some of the game plan decisions were odd, I guess, to put it lightly. The big one for me, and look, people who watch the show know I like Miles Bryant. I think he's a good, serviceable, rotational defensive back. I do, in the right matchup. Chase Claypool is not the matchup. And what made that so frustrating was Bill Belichick on Friday, and this is Bill Belichick who hates player comparisons. If you ask him about a player comparison, he'll never talk to you again. Compared defending Chase Claypool to defending Rob Gronkowski, talking about the size and the speed and the catch radius, right? Which is a bit much, a bit hyperbole. Like I see where he's coming from.
That's just him ratting on Gronk and comparing him down to Chase Claypool.
Maybe, but either way, Miles Bryant, 5'8" Miles Bryant, like. And he made some competitive plays, and I think some of it was the Steelers maybe scheming some things up because they kept getting bigger guys, whether it was Claypool or Freiermuth or Harris, like in the open field with Bryant to have to tackle them. But I have no idea where. There were some times when the Patriots picked that matchup. I can't explain that one. Jalen Mills on Deontay Johnson is another one. When you have Jonathan Jones now playing boundary corner, that type of matchup is the exact reason I would think you're putting Jonathan Jones on the boundary to defend that guy. That's just not Jalen Mills' game. Jalen Mills' game is defending guys like Chase Claypool. So I thought those matchups were interesting. Marcus Jones being inactive, again, when you're going to put Miles Bryant on Chase Claypool, kind of the one I keep going back to. So yeah. I didn't love look, he made the play, all the credit in the world to him. Matthew Judon in coverage on a running back on a key third down.
He made it, though.
He made all the credit in the world to him.
Yeah.
Great play. He got a little lucky. They didn't call a flag. Great play. That flashed me back to, and I don't know if you guys remember this. This is a bit of a deep poll. When Matt Patricia was here as the DC, they used to put Trey Flowers in like shallow zones on third down, their best pass rusher all the time. And it was beyond frustrating. I remember them doing it against the Steelers, against Le'Veon Bell in very similar situations. Again, Judon made the play, make it 1-1. Throw that one out, leave that page of the playbook in Pittsburgh. He's a pass rusher. Let him rush the passer in those situations. So, again, like I thought guys played well when they were put in position. I thought Christian Barmore had a much better day today. Loved what I saw from Jabril Peppers. Hope he gets more involved in the future. I'll even say it, and Mike, you better say it too. Jelani Tavai made a play today. He looked good. Respect.
I know
that
sack.
But when some of their coverage decisions to me were really, really mind-boggling today.
Yeah, Tavai's in the game because Bentley, he was out for a little bit. He did return, and that was good.
Peppers made his plays. Yeah, Peppers made his quality plays.
Duggar did not return to the game.
Duggar did not return.
Jonathan Jones, I believe, did not return also, right?
Did he not? I thought he did.
Oh, okay.
He might have returned to the sideline, not the game.
Okay. So those are injuries again to watch. But yeah, that's why you had to throw in a little bit. It was a bit of a mishmash there. If that Jones isn't active next week for whatever reason, I would imagine Marcus Jones gets back into the mix.
Yeah, he'd have to at that point. They're only
like,
not dressing one corner per week. So
exactly. And it was Marcus, the odd man out here.
The mismatches in the back end, Alex. I agree with it. I think ultimately they win the game, and they kind of made Trubisky make the plays, or made Trubisky try and make plays against those matchups, and he really didn't. But as far as linebackers go, I've said it maybe 3 or 4 times now. whether it be on this show or whether writing for it on CLNS. But the speed at linebacker is something that I continue to love seeing, and just the playmaking in general.
Mac
A
Wilson,
guy like
yep.
Mac Wilson's play on the interception was huge. You'd like to see him come down with it, I guess, but Mills was in the right spot at the right time. So, I mean, that's enormous. That's something you wouldn't have seen from a middle linebacker a linebacker on this team last year.
Sure.
Judon playing coverage. I know it's like you said, it's one of one, but I mean, that's huge. That's making that's a linebacker using some speed and coverage, not inside going to make a play. And then I had this prepped and I was going to say it as well, but I mean, Jelani Tavai making a sack and kind of making an opportunity happen with Bentley out of the game it was huge. It's good stuff to see in the middle of the field.
Yep.
So kudos.
So again, we have to throw in the caveat that this is a Mitch Trubisky-led offense, and my goodness, for any complaints anybody has about Mac Jones and or the Patriots not being dynamic enough, oh my goodness gracious, Trubisky, that can't be what they're going to do all year.
That offense is what some people in the chat think the Patriots offense is. I'll say this honestly to put context on it too. I think what the Patriots game plan was today, and there was one play, I have a picture of it on my Twitter. You might remember the play I was talking about where it's early in the second half, they threw the ball in the flat to Najee Harris, and there's no Patriots defender on the screen. I mean, they're all 30. There's the 4 pass rushers. They're all like 20 yards back on like a 2nd and 10, right? Their game plan, it felt like to me, was don't give up anything cheap over the top. Force Mitchell Trubisky to check down. And as long as we step up and we make the tackle, eventually he'll make a mistake. And they executed that game plan today. It was actually, I think, the same game plan it was similar to what they did last week against Tua. I think the concept was the same. The difference is last week, they didn't step up and make the tackle. There were too many opportunities after the catch, which they significantly limited today. And then you look at what Tua did to the Ravens today, right? I think that adds some context to, yes, it was a Trubisky-led team today, but it's a bend, don't break defense. I mean, Matt Patricia's back. He's also the senior football advisor. He's not just the offensive coordinator. I think he's giving some input.
Client. Yeah.
It does feel like it's kind of that bend, don't break thing. And against a guy like Trubisky, that's how you run it. So again, the assignments were weird. The coaching element of it was weird, but I'm not overly concerned about what the defense did today. I think it was like 274 yards.
No. It's more of a commentary. And again, you do have to take some things with a grain of salt. This is more of a commentary on, my God, there's some really awful quarterback play in the NFL. And the Patriots were fortunate to have faced, one of them right here. The 1 o'clock window alone, Trubisky, Daniel Jones, Carson Wentz, Jared Goff, Jacoby Brissett, Joe Flacco, Jameis Winston, Baker Mayfield. Blah, my goodness, that's what passes for quarterback right now. And I know there's some injuries there as well.
Let's not forget Jimmy Garoppolo.
And then Jimmy G comes in for Trey Lance.
Jimmy G is back with a vengeance on you, Alex. I think they're better off this season with Jimmy at the helm. I do.
Grumpy Tom. I'll tell you what, from a body language perspective, and I don't, I'm not always this body language guru here, but they looked like they had a little jump when Jimmy entered the game. That was just my opinion. But that's that. So putting a bow on the Patriots, because I want to quickly touch on some of the other things we saw, particularly around the AFC East today. Alex, any other final thoughts on the Pats game here?
So one other thing I'll add on the defense, and this, I'll give credit to the coaching here. I said I didn't like some of the matchups, but the in-game adjustments, the Steelers started on 3rd down, 7 of 9. They converted 7 of their 9 3rd downs to late in the first half. From that point on, they converted just 1 of 6 with an average distance to go of 7 yards. I wrote about this all on 98.5thesportshub.com, the difference of 3rd downs. Great situational football by the defense down the stretch, getting those 3 and outs, forcing those 3rd and longs. Yeah, it's a Trubisky-led defense, but, they didn't take any plays off. They didn't have it. We saw mental lapses last week, I think was a big issue. They would play 2 of every 3 plays on the series strong, but that 3rd play would really kill them. They really played, full drives, didn't take any plays off down the stretch there. So a building block day for the defense in terms of the players, I would say.
So I'm going to transition off a little bit here to we were talking earlier. We briefly touched upon the Dolphins and Tua, and Mac, And Mike feels like we owe some apologies to Dolphins fans for all of the Tua slander last week. And I got to tell you, Tua looked friggin' awful last week. He looked like a different human being today. Again, they took advantage of a lot of underneath stuff and some crossers as well. But I mean, there were guys running open downfield. He was throwing the ball downfield. It looked like a totally different guy. This was a shocking. Baltimore looked like they legit just stopped playing completely in this game, and the Dolphins just roared back down 21 points in the fourth quarter, and they beat the Ravens to 6 touchdown passes.
6.
My God,
this could be a potential sign that the Patriots defense also might be a little bit better than we're even.
So that's what I was going to ask you guys.
Yeah.
So now they did it against the Ravens, and you're playing the Ravens next week. What, if anything, can we draw from this? What conclusions can we draw from watching Tua light up the Ravens after struggling the way he did against the Patriots? Whether it's, okay, he had a bad game, or the Patriots defense is better than we thought, or the Ravens actually might be someone who the Patriots have a better chance against than we thought because they might be able to move the ball there. What are your takeaways here? Just one, your reaction to watching it, and how, if at all, does it the implications for the Patriots?
Well, Tua fully took advantage, first of all, of bringing in Tyreek Hill, adding him to the Jalen Waddle offense today. McDaniel and Tua, rather, took advantage of that. I mean, again, 6 touchdowns from Tua, who, I mean, far and away his best NFL game we've ever seen. Looks to be very comfortable in that McDaniel-Shanahan offense. There's 2 storylines I feel like you can kind of look at it from two. You can look at it from 2 lenses. Either the Patriots took advantage of 2 subpar quarterbacks and played well on defense, or their defense is able to kind of shut down, in general, a guy like Tua last week, who then went out and threw for 406 touchdowns. I kind of want to see what Trubisky can do again next week to see kind of how that compares as well. But Dolphins in the AFC look a lot better just from that fourth quarter than I thought they did in their first 7 quarters of football.
Yeah, I think the Dolphins are the perfect, and I've said this before, the Dolphins are the perfect example of building your team, building your offense around your quarterback to suit your quarterback skill set, right? Tua's, and I don't think people give him enough credit for his accuracy in the short and intermediate game. He's not the deep thrower he was at Alabama. I think he's still dealing with the fallout from that hip injury. But
when guys are streaking down the field, he can be. Go ahead.
Well, here's the thing. If you start picking teams apart underneath, and you have these guys who are so good after the catch, where you can't just say, we're going to sit back and come up and make the tackle, right? We actually have to play more aggressively up front. You open up some bigger windows down the field, and then it's just a little easier to make those throws. So I think that's what you saw from Miami. I think the Patriots basically they were fine with the underneath stuff. They were never going to give up that deep pass. I think that was their whole mentality. That was the defense was, yeah, these 2 guys will burn us. They can, burn us after the catch-all game. We don't care. We're not going to let Tua go over the top. Whereas I think the Ravens kind of took the cheese a little bit and sort of came up, and then that really opened up that explosive playmaking. So it's like the rabbit from Monty Python, or is it the rabbit from Monty Python, where like it looks all cute, and then if you actually go and get close to it, big scary monster like that. John, you muted.
I'm on mute. No, it flies at you, and it like
yes.
Yeah.
That's what the Ravens offense is. If you stay away, it's not too bad. But you have to be committed to staying away. The second you kind of get drawn in, it's going to come get you. It's going to really open up and be that monster. So I think the Patriots, it tells us the defense can be disciplined, which is good. Patriots defenses traditionally are very disciplined. But it also shows you just how scary the Dolphins can be when they kind of reach their final form, right?
Run away.
As for Tua himself, yeah, I think he looked good today. I think he certainly looked better. I do think he was a little rusty last week. When he can play his game, he's the real deal. And that's the case of a lot of quarterbacks. When you take them out of their game, they're going to struggle. Tua's game's just kind of unique, more unique than maybe some other guys. But I thought the Dolphins looked good. And as for the Ravens, wake up call for the Patriots offense here. You got to go punch for punch. You're going to have your opportunities. I don't think you can count on the defense. The defense might play well, but you can't count on holding the opponent under 20 points. You can't count on them holding the opponent.
Go get some points.
300 yards. Yeah. You're going to, like, the offense is going to have to, the muff punt, right? The offense is going to have to do something for itself this week. It's going to have to hold its own. I don't necessarily, I think the defense kind of carried the game today, right? The defense kind of held the offense's hand. It's like the meme with the turtles, right? Where they're all carrying, I forget the name. I'm not a big Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles guy, but you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
The offense has to grow up and do its own part next week. That's the message. They'll have their chances. They're going to have their chances to punch back. This Ravens defense has its holes, but they certainly have to take advantage if they want to do that.
Exactly.
The Ravens, sorry, John, the Ravens too, like they're a team with Lamar that they're a team that has to get out in front early, and that's how they win their games.
Well,
But
that's how the
today
Patriots beat them a couple years ago.
Right. Well, today they got out in front early, and they let Miami crawl back, and then Lamar Jackson had a chance to go in it at the end of the game, and he didn't.
Yeah.
That's something that I've always kind of wondered about Lamar anyway, is how he can do it from behind. And ultimately today he didn't get it done. Lamar's going to earn his money and all that jazz. But like, if the Pats can get
today, he earned money.
Oh, of course. But again, if the Pats get out in front, it's going to be an entirely different game. And
I like Lamar.
Yeah.
No, we'll see what happens there. But definitely an interesting game. For Patriots fans, given last week's opponent and then next week's opponent. The other news and notes, from around the NFL. We had do I have the Jets here? The Jets came back and won. That was surprising against Cleveland. Also a huge story in the NFL. Trey Lance looks like Gordon Haywarded his ankle, and he's in bad shape, and he's out going for surgery. We're not sure what that's going to mean, if it's the entire season, but it seems likely. And that's Jimmy G's show once again.
The luckiest quarterback in the league in every single way possible. It's just unbelievable.
No, that's Sam Bradford, even though he's not around anymore, but that's fine.
He keeps getting chances, and he's going to play
That
mediocre.
was Sam Bradford, yeah.
Jimmy keeps getting chances, and guess what? He's going to play mediocre mid-football down the stretch, and it's not going to matter because George Kittle in that defense will make enough plays that they're going to end up winning games. They're, Jimmy Garoppolo, he's a winner when he goes like 8 for 20 with like 64 passing yards with a touchdown and a pick. And they'll win some bizarre playoff game they shouldn't win, because that's what happens with Jimmy Garoppolo. He's the most misleading quarterback of all time.
I love it, though. I love it.
I know, but the true way to tell the difference between people who actually watch football and know what they're watching versus people who just follow box scores and headlines is ask what they think of Jimmy Garoppolo. If somebody tells you they think Jimmy Garoppolo is a good quarterback, they don't actually watch Jimmy Garoppolo.
You're using the box score in your argument, Alex. You just gave a stat line. You said he goes 8 of 20 and etc. But if you
know what I mean, headlines, the wins. They look at the wins.
Okay.
Yeah, they look at the wins. They look at the final
Jimmy,
score.
Look, the reality is
they're better off with Jimmy.
Jimmy maybe the
I'm not necessarily saying Lance is good either. I wouldn't have taken Lance. They have too bad. Can't they? Everybody's doing this. Well, Jimmy's the guy. Lance, it's like we did with Cam and Stidham, right? It should be Cam Newton's team. It should be Jarrett Stidham's team.
It was never Jarrett Stidham's team.
Not one person took the second to breathe and say, what if it's neither of them? What if they both suck? I don't know why it's so tough for people to just say that when we get these quarterback competitions. It is kind of fun.
The Cam and Stidham argument was, the Cam thing doesn't work. Just try the other thing. Try it. Please try something different. I can't watch this anymore. That was more the issue rather than make it Stidham's team. With the Garoppolo stuff, I always find it interesting because you're right. He's not good. He might be the most average quarterback who's ever lived. But the record is ridiculous. And I love you have football people out there who say, well, win isn't a quarterback stat, except when you want to talk about a quarterback who wins to make your point. So, I'm not sure what it is with Jimmy, but the record is ridiculous. Mm-hmm. And all things being equal, I don't know how he continues to be such a winner where you put in anybody else and they can't even come close to it. If he's so average, that means again, if Jimmy Garoppolo is the most average quarterback ever, but his record is ridiculous, therefore anyone who's ever played for the San Francisco 49ers other than Jimmy in the last couple of years must be the worst quarterback who's ever lived.
There's something about a team getting
who is it? Nick Mullins.
Nick Mullins,
the kid from
Beathard.
Northwestern, right? CJ
Beathard
was in there.
Iowa.
It's like
but
all
now
the
Trey,
Big Ten,
a very small sample size.
It's all the mid-tier Big Ten quarterbacks.
But if Jimmy's that bad, then Trey might be terrible.
He's not that bad. There's something about a team getting around a guy and playing better football because of him. That team, John, you said it before we came on. That team completely jolted out of what they were with Trey Lance when Jimmy came on that field. They all play better. They all like Jimmy. I sound like Colin Cowherd every day, but Colin Cowherd says it about. Go ahead.
Nick Mullins, CJ Beathard, Brian Hoyer, Blaine Gabbert.
There it is.
Those are their last 5 starting. Yeah, no. So, John, you're absolutely right. And sure, maybe they respond to Jimmy Garoppolo a little bit, and people say, "Well, if he's such a winner, why does he suck?"
Not a little bit.
I would throw the inverse at you. That roster is incredible. They have an insane
That's
amount
great.
of talent.
Oh, yeah.
Why
It's a
haven't
win
they
now
won
roster.
more?
It's a win now roster with a quarterback who's not
Why
ready.
haven't
And
they
that's the
won
problem.
more, Alex? Not everyone wins. There's one win. There's one win Super Bowl winner every year. They went to one with Jimmy. They went to an NFC Championship last
They would
game
have
with Jimmy.
won. So they would have won the Super Bowl with Jimmy. Go back and look how that game was played. They're running the
They
ball,
should
running
have.
the ball, running the
They
ball.
should have.
They get
Okay.
up 14 points, and Kyle
Okay.
Shanahan, who also, by the way, overrated, just starts throwing the ball with Jimmy
I know.
Garoppolo. The
Look at
14-point
look
lead is
at
gone
his-
like that.
Look at his
They're
coaching
so
tree. Look
good,
at that tree.
except in the
You
two
can't call
most-
that guy overrated.
This could go on.
He's great play caller. Not a good head coach. Can't manage a game. They're so talented outside of the two spots that actually really truly matter. It's insane. Everybody says that team. Garoppolo's great. Look at it. That team has underachieved
Okay, so
for the
what
last
would you
5
rather
years.
them do? What would you? No, they have not. No, what would you rather them do?
No, 30
Well,
seconds.
Brady, for
30
one, when
seconds.
they
I
had
got to
their
wrap
chance.
it. Yeah.
Brady, for
Say that
one,
again?
when they had their chance.
Okay, fine. I'll give you Brady. Anything else? There's nothing better.
Russell
Okay.
Wilson,
Kyle
any of these guys that have come free. Take Justin Fields like they should have. Justin Fields would be electric in that
Stop.
offense.
I will.
No, he
I
won't.
will.
No.
I will
Trey
mute
Lance.
both of you. I will mute
Stop.
both of you. We. Here's why we have to go. Okay, ready? Last thing I want to say: buy Athletic Greens, athleticgreens.com/garden.
Greens.
And while we mention this, the Garden, it's because a Garden Report is coming up in 3 minutes on these channels, on the YouTube channel and your Celtics channel live with Bobby Manning, Josue Pavone. Might I jump on? It's possible, but I'm in Patriots mode today. We'll see what happens. But if you're
That's why
interested
we
in some
got
basketball talk, Wick Grousebeck all of a sudden says the Celtics are overrated. What are you doing, Wick?
Yep.
What are you doing? And he'll
Wrote about
spend all
that.
the money in the world. What? Okay. So we got a little something to talk about. And we are a week out from Media Day, which means actually Celtics are really this close to starting. It's just around the corner. So we're starting to get pumped up for basketball. I know everyone's in a football frame of mind, but if you want to talk hoops, Bobby Manning, Josue Pavone, who knows who else they've invited on the show, going to be talking basketball on our YouTube channel, main YouTube channel, our Celtics YouTube channel. So check it out there.
The Celtics are the most likely NBA team to make the postseason, according to BetOnline. So
there it is. For those of you watching at home, thanks to Alex Barth. Check out his stuff at 98.5 The Sports Hub. And, of course, make sure you listen to Patriots Beat coming up later in the week, break down the game in a more granular way. And, of course, Mike Kadlick, Patriots writer for CLNSmedia.com. Thank you guys very much